Hi everyone, and welcome to the Truck King YouTube channel. Well, today on the channel, we are comparing the future with the past. That is the 2021 Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro, and it soldiers on with the exact same powertrain it's had for a while. On the other hand, this is the 2021 Jeep Wrangler 4xe Rubicon. This thing is off-road ready, and it's a plug-in hybrid. So we have a lot to talk about. In this video, we'll take them both for a drive, we'll tell you what they're like to live with every day, we'll talk about value, and then we'll head off-road. Kick this one off with the Walkaround, and like I mentioned off the top, Jeep, what they're doing is really pushing the Wrangler into the future with this plug-in hybrid model. And actually, just in general, Jeep won't stop changing the Wrangler. They just brought in the 392, so in the same year that you get a plug-in hybrid, you also get a crazy V8. So what we have right here in this Jeep is a 2-liter turbocharged inline 4-cylinder that makes 270 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. But that's not all. Now, Jeep has incorporated their e-torque system here, so that is a belt starter generator, and that thing is adding 44 horsepower to the mix, but then we're getting a 17.3 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack and an electric motor, and the electric motor makes 134 horsepower and 181 pound-feet of torque. So what does that all come together to make? Well, the total system output here, 375 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque. So Jeep really threw all of the technologies at this Wrangler, and I can't wait to get out there and drive it and see how it all comes together. Now, the other cool thing with the 4xe is you can get it as a Sahara model, which is kind of the luxury mall crawler, or you can get it like this as a Rubicon. And if you go for the Rubicon, you don't lose any of the awesome off-road credentials. You're still getting an approach angle over 40 degrees, tow hooks up front, although now they're blue tow hooks, not red anymore. And you're still getting a set of standard BF Goodrich KO2s. So you're getting all the Rubicon goodies, a nice set of rock rails. You don't give anything up going for the electrified version. That's what I absolutely love about this 4xe. There are a couple of small differences here on the 4xe. The first one you'll notice right away, this is your charging port right up here on your A-pillar. It just pops open, and it's nice and easy to get to. Plus you get a convenient set of lights up on the dash which tell you your state of charge. Now the other thing that has changed here is the weight. This is a heavy Wrangler. Curb weight here, 5,222 pounds. Now, not only is that going to feel heavy on the trail, but you also sacrifice payload. I just want to take a look at the door jamb sticker here. Yep, in this Wrangler as it sits, you're only getting 850 pounds of payload, which is quite low. Now let's look at the 4Runner here. So like I mentioned, this powertrain hasn't changed in quite a while. This is still a 4-liter naturally aspirated V6, making 270 horsepower, 278 pound-feet of torque, and that actually means that the Jeep's 2-liter Turbo 4 is making more power than this Toyota without any of the electric stuff on it. The other thing that's really dated here, a 5-speed automatic transmission in the 4Runner compared to the 8 speeds over there in the Jeep. We do think there's a next generation 4Runner coming, hopefully next year, but you know, Toyota, they're classic for this. They bring out a model and they just let it soldier on. Some people think it's gonna tried and true. To me, I think they need to keep up with the times a little bit. But you know what? We're gonna get out there and drive and really see how these things feel. To be fair to Toyota, since TRD Pro debuted, they have updated these models with suspension revisions and new wheels and tires, and that's the same for this 4Runner. In 2021, it gets updated 2.5-inch Fox internal bypass shocks, which adds a 1-inch lift in the front end. So yes, for 2021, the 4Runner TRD Pro is a little different. Here's another example of the philosophy differences. Here on Toyota, they don't make their tow hooks fancy colors. They just keep them straight up black because they're not looking to make this thing flashy like Jeep. However, the tow hooks on the 4Runner buried way down there under the bumper. I love those tow hooks on the Wrangler. They're so easy to get to. Now, other things you get on the TRD Pro, of course, you're getting all-terrain tires. In this case, a set of Nitto Terra grapplers. And this model right here, as it sits, has a curb weight of just over 4,700 pounds. So, you know, quite a bit lighter than the Jeep over there. But now we got to look at the payload rating. I'll take a look at the sticker here. And it is a very depressing 750 pounds. So in this case, that Wrangler, which weighs a lot more, has all those batteries in it, it actually gets better payload than the 4Runner. This 4Runner, you get payload subtracted off of it because of the suspension here, because of things like the roof rack and the steps, but still 750 pounds, Toyota, that is a depressing number for an SUV of this size. Now let's compare rear ends. One of the obvious differences, the Jeep puts its spare tire right up here where you can get to it. Toyota has a full-size spare, but it's tucked underneath. I think the Wrangler wins that battle right there. Now here on the Jeep, we still have the classic swing gate, and then the glass opens up. This is a pretty nice setup, really allows you to, you know, get right into the back of your Wrangler here. Although the Wrangler, for storage space at the back, a little bit less than what you're gonna get over here in the 4Runner. Now the 4Runner, one of its kind of tricks, well, something Toyota people absolutely love, is you can walk up to it and open up the glass individually. The key's just in my pocket right now, and that's all you gotta do. Hit that button and it opens. Besides that, it's just a regular non-powered lift gate, but like I mentioned, you do get quite a bit of storage space back here, which I do appreciate. Finally, at the back end, I have to touch on towing. Here on the 4Runner, you are getting 5,000 pounds of tow rating. But remember, if you put a 5,000 pound trailer on, that's 500 pounds off your payload. That's pretty bad. Over here on the Jeep, you're only getting 3,500 pounds of towing. So technically you can tow more in the Toyota, but that's not what the payload story is. One other note on towing, here on the 4Runner TRD Pro, here's your 2-inch hitch, and here are your light hookups way down here underneath the bumper, you know, a good 15 inches away from your hitch. Now, not only is that a pain in the butt because you got to get down here and really find it, but Dad actually towed a trailer up here to the cottage, and the light hookup, you know, cord on the trailer was barely long enough to reach. And if he took a hard enough right-hand turn, he was worried it was going to pop right out of there. So definitely a strange light hookup situation here on the 4Runner. We understand it's mostly to accommodate this spare tire back here, but still, I've never seen a vehicle that has a setup like this. That Wrangler definitely looks more convenient than this is. Well, Dad, we're going to start this one out by driving in the past. That's kind of what Toyota kind of does, don't they? They like being the old school brand, or I'm not sure whether they like it or not, but that is what they end up being, and that's what this 4Runner really feels like. It feels old school.
I think they are very cost conscious. In some ways, maybe more so than some of the other companies. They really take a good look at something, and they don't allow themselves to be sort of swayed by whatever the current pop culture is. They look at the part, they look at the system, and they say, does it work? Well then, yeah, we're not going to change it. And that works probably, in my opinion, for about 90% of the vehicle, and I got no issue with that. My issue comes where I got to look at this engine, this 4-liter, which is traditionally a good engine, has a decent reputation, been around forever, but the fuel mileage stinks.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't even jump out at you so much if everybody else wasn't doing so much better.
Exactly. This is a 5-speed automatic, right? That's the big thing. The engine's part of it, and then just 5 speeds. We've been getting about 15 liters per 100 kilometers just driving empty, which is about 15 miles per gallon. And it only goes up from there, you know, that's just regular around town driving. So Dad is absolutely right. You know, they're really falling behind in the fuel economy battle. Power is okay. It doesn't feel underpowered. It feels like enough, I would say. That's sort of my take on it.
The mid-range is weak, and I say that too because I had the trailer on yesterday, and maybe 2,500 pounds, and it just, yeah, anytime I was in that sort of, you know, 60, 65 kilometers, so 40 mile an hour range, and I wanted to dig into it a little bit, it had to drop a gear immediately.
Yeah.
It just bogged.
Well, and of course, with less gears, those jumps between the gears are bigger. So with an 8-speed, yeah, it would have, you know, more gears to go to, more choices. definitely it's fallen behind there.
So from that point of view, this is where I think Toyota is probably smart, but I'd like them to be smart. Update the powertrain. Leave the rest of it alone. It works. That's fine, but you know, give us a better powertrain.
Well, the real gem of this TRD Pro, in my opinion, is the suspension. So we get Fox shocks all the way around here, and TRD Pro, I would say more so than some of the other off-road nameplates, is more about high speed. You know, when they brought these things out, they brought us to the desert. They've always had that desert racer thing kind of in mind. And that's what really comes across in the 4Runner here. When you pick up your speeds, this thing is swallowing up the ground beneath it. And yeah, the suspension upgrades are absolutely noticeable, and they make a big difference. And they make this 4Runner ride real nice. Now, the suspension is great, but is it really worth that low payload number? I think that's the biggest contributor to why there's such low payload here. We have a couple options like the roof rack and some steps, but you know what? We've been doing this now long enough. I'm noticing the trend. What is with Toyota and low payload numbers? The Tundra SR5 we tested was low, the Tacoma was low, and now this 4Runner is only 750 pounds. That means 4 200-pound adults, you're overloading this thing. Mind you, Toyota probably builds in 150 pounds into that, so, you know, give or take a few. But even still, 750 is just so low. What can you do with that? What are you gonna put up on the roof rack? You can't do it without overloading this TRD Pro. I don't know why Toyota, maybe they're just, again, really conservative, so they're scared of you overloading, so they downrate it. But to me, the fact that the Wrangler is so much heavier and yet still has a better payload, yeah, that's a fail on Toyota's part.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, Steve, the thing that I don't like, and we do this video after video, is we talk about payload and then we go, we don't understand why this payload is the way it is. And in this case, I'm calling out Toyota directly. You guys, I would like you to give us some clarity. I'd like you to get in touch and say, look, this is how we establish payload, so that at least I'd understand it. Because my gut tells me this vehicle will handle way more than what you're saying. Well, then why are you putting that number on it? And if I'm wrong, and it really will only handle that number, I'd like to understand that too. So there you go, guys.
Now, Dad, it is time for the future. We are here in the Wrangler 4xe. Right now, driving it in hybrid mode, and right now it's all electric. The engine is absolutely not running. And one of the things I think you have to judge, first of all, when you get into a plug-in hybrid is, you know, just how different does it feel or not different. And in this case, that's it. You get in here, you start driving it like any other Wrangler, and you don't really notice the difference. There's still a transmission, it still shifts, and then when I put my foot into it, the engine kicks on, and there's the power, and you take off, and it feels good. So I think from that perspective, first of all, let me just say, yeah, if you're getting into a 4xe, you think it's gonna feel weird, it really doesn't. Even the brakes feel pretty normal, and that's a tricky one. Getting hybrid brakes to feel like regular brakes can be a strange one. So anyways, kudos to Jeep there. This thing drives basically like every other Wrangler.
Well, they're doing the smart thing, and the smart thing is, don't make people try to learn something new. It's hard enough to get them to learn anything.
Yeah.
So they're used to a certain thing. I mean, we know this from CVTs. Okay, CVTs, they didn't shift, and they whined, and people lost their minds. So much so that most companies who still use them have installed false shift points, simply so that it calms you, making you think it's doing something that it's not. So Jeep was smarter to get it right the first time, which is, yeah, we can put in a hybrid electric, but don't require the driver to do anything different.
Exactly. So there's 3 different main drive modes here in the Wrangler. Right now we're in hybrid mode. Basically, it will try to use the electricity, but it will give you the engine's power when you need it. Then you also have just electric mode, so I can hit that button, and like it says, it's going to keep it electric until it runs out. And then you have e-save, and what that is going to do, it's going to keep your engine running. So if usually the thinking here is that using the electric makes more sense around town, because that's when you're getting the worst fuel economy. So you're on the highway, you hit e-save, and then when you get into the city, you use your electric power. And it's just nice that, you know, as the driver, you have those options, so then you can use that power where you know it is the most effective. So I already said this off the top, it drives like a regular Wrangler, and what does that mean? Well, that basically means that, like a regular Wrangler, it's kind of all over the road. It takes a lot of driving input to keep this thing going straight. That's just what a Jeep is, and it's all about aerodynamics. They're not great here. Plus off-road capability. This Jeep has to be ready to swallow up some big hits off-road. So that comes together to make the on-road driving experience not the best. And then one of the funny things I think is that a Wrangler has always been a loud vehicle. When you don't have a roof, when you got big tires like that, it's loud. And then you make it all electric, you just notice everything in here, Dad. That's what I'm feeling on this gravel road. I hear that tire noise. I hear every single rock hitting the inside of the fenders. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's different. It's something that we got to get used to.
Yeah, well, the engine drone is not there to kind of drown everything out, so all of a sudden you're hearing things that you didn't hear before because the electric propulsion is virtually silent.
And I'm most excited for it off-road, because off-road, you're out in the bush, it's going to be really cool to have that absolutely, you know, quiet off-roading experience.
So you can sneak up on chipmunks.
Exactly. So now that all leads us to pricing. And yes, going for all of this fancy tech in the Jeep, well, it's going to cost you. This Wrangler Rubicon 4xe, as it sits here today, has an MSRP here in Canada of $76,000. The 4Runner over there is going to sell for $64,000 Canadian. So the 4Runner is more affordable, but still 64 is not inexpensive. So for either one of these, yeah, you're definitely paying a good amount for it. Well, folks, we are coming to the end of this video, and I know you're saying, where's the off-roading? And the answer is in the video coming tomorrow. Now, if you're watching this on debut day, just give us one night, and when you wake up tomorrow, you can watch all the mud flying. If you're watching this anytime in the future, well, just leave right now and go find the off-roading video on the channel. We had so much cool off-road footage that I didn't want to make one monster video because it just would have been way too long. So yes, come back for that full off-road video. As for the conclusion here, honestly, both of these vehicles definitely have their pros and cons, but on road every single day, the 4Runner actually has a bit of a nicer driving experience compared to the Wrangler, although the Wrangler is obviously going to destroy the 4Runner when it comes to fuel economy. So yes, you got to look at these two carefully, and then consider as well that the Wrangler here is quite a bit more expensive. Now, I don't have a full conclusion yet. You're going to have to come back for part 2 of this video series. And right now, of course, I want to hear from you. So go below, leave us a comment. Don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, hit that join button to become a member of the channel, and then come right back here to Truck King to see us get this 4Runner and Wrangler really muddy. See ya.